All right, handsome men's game, you will be lonely. In this video, I want to talk about why you as a handsome guy can run into the problem of feeling lonely, excluded, or ignored a lot of the time. This topic was inspired by some coaching sessions I've had with guys lately that are struggling with this exact thing. And in fact, I just got off a call a few minutes ago with another guy that could relate to this problem wholeheartedly. And this whole thing can be confusing on the surface because being attractive is considered to be a net positive overall. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't come without its own set of problems, especially in this current era of dating. And let's start here with the foundation of what can go wrong and expand out from there. So stay with me throughout this video because I'm going to build on each point. So the foundational idea of being an attractive guy is basically that you're rare, because most people by definition are average. The average person is average. Shocking, right? So by being above average in the looks department, you are automatically separated from the vast majority of the population and you stand out in both good and bad ways. The good ways are obvious. You're nice to look at, so women drool over you in their mind and guys want to look like you or be like you. But because of the way the human brain works, you're also placed into a category in the minds of both men and women before you even say a word. I've talked about this a bit more in my other Handsome Men's Game videos, so I won't go on too much about this part. But the idea is that because your looks are above average, women can sometimes feel like they don't have a shot at getting you, or that you're surrounded by hot women all the time already and they don't want to deal with that competition. They may also avoid talking to you because they don't want to inflate your ego anymore, at least in their mind. Some guys will also resent you at times because you're what they wish they could be, and it's frustrating to them. These are the types of guys that leave angry black pill comments on YouTube about how looks are the only thing that matters when you know for a fact that isn't the entire story. It's a great piece of the puzzle to have, but it doesn't complete the puzzle. But guys will sometimes feel intimidated by you and not want to be around you, or they definitely won't want their women around you, and women will feel like you're just out of their league, or a player, or a narcissist, or all of the above. My ultimate point is that a portion of the time you will get placed into a category that is viewed negatively because you inspire jealousy or an aura of being unattainable, so women will think, why even bother trying to talk to you in the first place? Now, on your side of things, this can get in your head like there's something wrong with you. If you're not careful, you can start to internalize this and really overthink things, in the sense that you'll start to wonder what is wrong with you and why guys don't seem to want to talk to you, or women don't throw any signals your way and they almost seem turned off by you, if anything. If you pair this with the positive feedback that you're used to getting throughout your life about your looks, it becomes really confusing, because on one hand you have people telling you that you're really attractive, but then in practice it seems like you get more rejections or have more negative experiences than anything. It's an equation that doesn't make sense on the surface. How can you be attractive but barely anyone talks to you, or women act like you don't exist? It's contradictory, and it can create this habit to where you're used to being alone or having people ignore you or treat you in a weird way. So you just settle into that. You start to get used to being the lone wolf because it's better than dealing with the weird vibes that you get from men and women. And that's where the lonely journey comes into play. If you're an attractive guy, you may feel an overall sense of disconnect in different ways as you go throughout life. On one hand, you'll get superficial compliments from some people, but then ignored or easily dismissed by others. This can get even worse if you're also a successful guy on top of being good looking, and you'll start to wonder if you need to dumb yourself down in a way in order to fit in or be more accepted by the men and women around you. For example, I recently had a one-on-one call with a guy who's very successful, and honestly, the guy could be a male model if he wanted to. He's got everything dialed in on the surface, but he was saying that relationships with women often fizzle out because their insecurities start to flare. And when trying to find new women, they often don't give him the time of day. And if you saw this guy on the surface, you'd think he's probably got 20 supermodels waiting for him at his house, but it's the complete opposite, and instead he feels alone and excluded. This can actually wreak a lot of havoc on an attractive person's psyche, especially if you have a personality type that likes to try and figure things out. You know, like a very logical, problem-solving, engineering type of mind. Because again, the equation here doesn't make any sense. You would think that the more attractive you are, the better everything becomes as a result. And in some ways that is true. I think it's better to be as attractive as you can rather than not caring at all. But we are often sold an idea that everything becomes smooth sailing across the board if you're a stud, and that just isn't true. In fact, if I look back on my own life, A lot of the guys that I knew that I considered to be good looking dudes were not necessarily the ones getting all the women. In fact, a lot of the time it was the guy that was a few notches lower in the looks department, because that type of guy had a more approachable vibe to him, and other men just weren't as threatened by that guy. And because this type of treatment doesn't make sense logically, it can be easy to fall back into a mode of isolation, because that's just what we tend to do as humans when the levels of pain, confusion, or frustration are greater than the drive to want to solve or figure out the problem. Or in other words, you become overwhelmed with negativity and you want to give up. And we're seeing it all the time now in the dating scene in general too. If I had a dime for every time someone mentioned that they're just gonna focus on themselves, I'd have a mansion in Hawaii at this point. And since a lot of guys don't know how to solve the dating problem at hand, isolation and focusing on yourself is the default response now. Or it becomes the default response for the guys that just see dating as too much work that isn't worth the time. But in my opinion, it's the wrong response, because we can't escape our biological programming. Humans are never gonna stop desiring connection with other humans, so opting out of the dating scene is essentially a cope that will eventually build a powdered keg inside of you that will just explode another way. Because we as humans are essentially trapped inside of a biological prison of desires. You're wired to procreate and be attracted to women, and that isn't going away no matter what you consciously decide. It's like if you decided to stop eating food today. We'll see how you feel in a couple of days when the hunger is overwhelming. You can't escape that hunger because of your wiring as a human. And likewise, the urge to become isolated as a good-looking guy who is facing these struggles may be tempting, but it's not a solution to the problem. And before I continue, I don't want you to think that I'm discrediting the idea of being comfortable being alone, because being 100% comfortable alone is a skill all men should develop, because it makes you more secure and complete as a person overall, and that is attractive. For quick reference, I helped a guy a couple years back, and when we started working together, he was out of shape physically, and he was in a relationship that he didn't like at all, but he didn't know how to detach from that relationship. And to make a long story short, I helped him get out of that relationship, get in the best shape of his life, and then we worked on his dating life, and his options took off like crazy. He was a very coachable person, so he did everything I said, and this dude went on a dating spree that few others have. He had endless options, honestly. However, the more I worked with him, the more I also realized that he wasn't comfortable being alone. And a lot of the dating was to cover up that loneliness element. So that became the larger problem to solve. So keep in mind that there's a balance here between working on your social and dating life, but also needing that foundation of being comfortable alone. You need both. But with all that said, you will have to keep your circle tight as a handsome guy, because the envy from other guys can get really annoying in some cases, and the guys out there that have experienced this know exactly what I'm talking about. I spoke about my grandfather in a previous video, and he was very well connected to a lot of people throughout his lifetime, and he was a good-looking guy in his younger years, but he always kept his circle of friends small. He had men trying to backstab him in his corporate and personal life, and he preferred to keep his circle to 1 to 2 good friends and then his family otherwise. And this is the type of thing that you'll most likely have to do as a guy who is attractive or successful or both. You may have a larger circle of people that you know or interact with, but a lot of those interactions will be superficial and occasional. Most of the time, they won't be lasting connections with people that you can trust, and you'll notice that you'll even question the actions or things that people close to you say sometimes, which can really catch you off guard. Like, it may feel like they're taking a stab at you or jealous of you, and this can happen sometimes even with friends that you've had for years. So total isolation isn't the answer, but trying to be everyone's best friend isn't the answer either. You have to find the middle ground, and this requires a critical attribute called resilience. And I know you already know what resilience means, but just for the sake of this discussion, I want to reference the dictionary real quick just to be clear on the definition. Resilience is defined as the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, or the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. And it will take a surprising amount of resilience to continue to push on and strive for more as an attractive guy, because of the confusing treatment that you'll get at times. You're gonna have to develop a thick skin and a layer of determination to your personality that motivates you to keep pushing towards your dating and relationship goals without being discouraged. You will have to get used to springing back into shape and recovering quickly. And an aspect that connects to all of this, especially when it comes to women, is that you'll have to get good at filtering out the wrong types of women and develop a higher standard for the type of women that will understand you. And that usually means an equally attractive woman, because a lot of attractive women go through similar problems beneath the surface. Attractive women are showered with attention, but a lot of it is attention that they don't actually want. For example, if you had 200 unattractive women hitting on you every week, you just get annoyed after a while rather than feeling a huge boost in confidence because you don't even want the attention from those women in the first place. It's a similar thing with these attractive women that get hit on by some 65-year-old dude who's married with 3 kids and follows 7,000 models on Instagram, because that's not a desirable option to them in the first place. And those same women get hate from other women who envy them, and they find it hard to make deeper connections with most people because of that. So bringing this back to you, if you're an attractive guy struggling with these issues, the type of woman who can really understand where you're coming from is a woman with similar challenges. But there is some nuance to this too. It's not an exact science as much as it is an art. It's not like dating a 9 out of 10 girl is going to guarantee you happiness because you just both understand each other. It has more to do with the girl's level of security and confidence in herself. A 9 out of 10 who is confident in her looks and herself will be able to understand where you're coming from because she has a similar experience. But a woman who is a 9 out of 10 who is a train wreck internally isn't going to help anything. But if you do look around in society, you will notice that people tend to date in their league in terms of looks. So just by the sake of what's likely to happen, you will likely get along better with a woman who is at least somewhat around your level of attractiveness. Now, again, this isn't a hard and fast rule. It's just something to consider because there also may be a girl out there who isn't a supermodel in the looks department, but she's solid internally and doesn't battle the same insecurities that other women will when they're with you. But in general, it's going to be difficult to find people that understand you or the specific problems that you encounter. You will likely also find it's hard to talk to other guys about certain dating experiences or stories because a lot of them won't be able to attract the women you can or understand the different problems that you have with finding a quality girl that you're actually interested in. And that's because you're playing a different game than them. You're not the average guy. This is also one of the dangers of hanging out with guys that aren't good with women, because they can project their insecurities onto you or give bad advice that doesn't make sense for your situation, or they'll try to live through you vicariously. If you compare this to business, it'd be like a local small business owner trying to tell Jeff Bezos how to run Amazon or give Tim Cook advice on how to run Apple. The advice could be good, but it's probably not, because they're playing completely different games in the realm of business. And this goes back to having a tight circle and filtering men out, just like how you have to filter women out if they aren't a good fit for your life, because a lot of them won't want to see you win. It's just that classic crabs in a bucket mentality. And if you've made it this far in the video and you've experienced some of this type of treatment, I want you to leave a comment down below and speak on it. And as an attractive guy, you will just have to learn how to be resilient while still putting in the effort to get to where you want to go. In a lot of ways, it will continue to be a lonely journey for you, but it's important to never dumb yourself down or to try to appeal to a lower common denominator just to fit in. You shouldn't snuff out the flame of your excellence just to appease others. Instead, you want to seek out people that are of a higher caliber and that understand and relate to you, because they're out there, both men and women. And look, when it comes to women, things can feel confusing and frustrating, especially with the women that seem like they aren't paying any attention to you at all, which is why you should watch this video next, where I talk about why women won't always throw signals and signs your way as a handsome man and how to go about solving the problem in order to get the girl.